Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Berringer. And today is part 3 of the station build. Some further progress has been made, as some of you can probably tell. So I'm just going to go over the additional work that I've done since you've last seen it. And most of you will probably see immediately that the front is what's had the most work done to it, because when you last saw it, I only had like one turret sort of half made, and none of this was painted up or anything like that. It wasn't weathered up or anything like that. So firstly, I've finished off the turret and also painted up all the way around, so that's all now nicely weathered. I've added the second turret as well, and I've sort of followed the pictures very closely, and I'll get onto that and show you that afterwards. So I've also added the canopy. Now this canopy isn't exactly the standard canopy that's on Margate Station or anything like that. This canopy is more like what's on platform 3, and so basically it's essentially the station building is loosely based on Margate Station. It's not an exact replica because obviously of the constraints of the layout, as I've mentioned before, but it's just to pick out some of the key features of it to transfer it into my build. But there are going to be differences, and the canopy is one of those differences, because obviously I'm trying to marry it up with the canopy that's on platform 3. If I get down, you can see also that I've just painted this up in the NSC colours and put the station name on here. I've tried to weather this up all as best as I can. Now I made a bit of a boo-boo, but I've since corrected it, as I'll explain it to you. And when I first started doing this bit, doing the painting of this bit of the detail here, this is a stone colour, and I basically painted it all the way through as the window surrounds. But what I didn't realise, it just looked a bit odd, and I wasn't quite sure why. And then when I returned back to my photo references, you see that this bit here is actually separate. It's actually darker, so that's why it looked a bit odd. So now obviously, so I've now corrected that. So now I've replicated it, and that's another thing I've done with the building, as I've dressed the stone at the bottom all the way around. I don't know whether or not the camera will pick it up. I think you can possibly can. I don't know if it will. Can't focus for me. Basically, I scored it. You might see it here. I've actually scored all of this, so there's a bit of patience required. So I've scored that, and also scored all the stones all along here. I mean, I'm not sure if you can sort of notice it. I was kind of hoping that as I weathered it and darkened it up, it might fall into the cracks and actually bring them out a bit, but it hasn't quite brought them out as much as I would have liked. So I've also added this doorway, which again I said before was supposed to be a window like this. It's supposed to be on here, but obviously because this turret had no other entrance to it, and I didn't make any provision for it on the inside, that's why I've put it here on the outside. But that's nice, and it's got it in the sort of red NSC colour. I've also done these window surrounds, and I think you can probably pick out where I've been scoring it with a knife all the way around to sort of create the stone effect. So that's something else that's been done, and I've done that all the way around. I've cut this little notch out because that sits, well, I'll show you when I put it on the layout. If I spin it around, again you can see that I've done that. So I'm just gonna, there we go. So I've done those as well. Done those window surrounds. Like I said, this cutout, this hole here, is what sits on the footbridge. And I don't know if I've shown you this, but this is how complicated it kind of is on the bottom. It's kind of got all these levels on the bottom, but it does work because it all sits in there. So as you've seen before, and again I've done the window surround here. I mean, I've still got to do that bit there, but it is coming along. But I've pretty much dressed it all. Like I said, I haven't done the retaining wall yet, which is something else I need to do. But we're slowly but surely getting there. So like I said, all that's being dressed round, and then there's the other door on the other side. I've still got all the detailing to do on the roof, and that's going to be one of my next jobs really. Um, I wanted to thank, like I said, a number of you made suggestions over my query that I mentioned about my glazing and how I was going to get through the glazing and mark that out. And one person mentioned insulation tape, and the one that I'm going with is John Warner commented. He actually said his quote was, "Good to see the building progressing. You mentioned using a pen to do the main entrance glazing. I've used large sticky labels or vinyl in the past with a scalpel, and so basically that is what I'm going to be doing. I managed to get some labels from WH Smith's, and I'm going to be doing that because I think that's going to be the less messy option. I don't really want to use paint because I don't know how well it will stick to the acetate, and also I don't want to smudge it or anything like that. So I think that's what I'm going to have a go at doing. I do have insulation tape, but I'm not so keen on that idea. But nonetheless, I'd like to thank all of you for your suggestions. And I'm really, really pleased with this because this has come out really, really well now. I mean, my next job is going to have to be to be doing the roof. I think we're near enough to do the roof. I'm just going to finish off this little bit here before I start making headway on the roof, and also to do these bits here, the top ends of the turrets. Which brings me onto a comment made by Simon, Leverton Central. He wanted to know about the angles for the roof. He was asking me about how I come across the angles for the roof. And the answer to that is, if I just take you back, all the scratch building that I do on this layout is all done freehand, and it's all done by eye. There's no kind of me going out to buildings or whatever with some sort of measuring equipment or whatever and drawing it to scale and all this kind of stuff. That's just not me. So I kind of look at things and I think, yeah, I could do that and have a go, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, you just chuck it. I mean, at the end of the day, my biggest tip to give to anybody, if you are interested in doing scratch building, is just to have a go. I mean, at the end of the day, the way to look at it, or the way I looked at it, is although it's quite daunting, if you just sort of see it as, if I just show you, look, over there is a piece of card. Apologies for the mess. And that piece of card has cost me £4. Well, actually, £3.50. And that's how that card has ended up like this. It's ended up like this piece, like this building. So at the end of the day, you don't have to spend money on glazing. You don't have to spend money on bits and pieces or plastic sheet or anything, plastic card, whatever. Just buy a piece of card and just have a go. And at worst, you chuck away £4. You know, and that's it. You know, so it's worth having a go. I mean, I just think that for me personally, I think to make a layout stand out, I like to see things on people's layouts which are kind of individual, because it gives that layout a kind of personality and character. It's like people might look at it and go, "I really like that," and it's like you can't buy it. You can't go and say, "Well, Batman, buy it off the shelf," or for example, you could go and say, go to a Model Railway exhibition, for example, and you might see three of the same Hornby buildings or three of the same Batman buildings that people have just plonked on the layout, which they're nice buildings, but it's nice to have something just that little bit different that makes it stand out. And that's what I was just trying to go for. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I just have a good go and see where it takes me. And so far, I'm really, really happy with it. I mean, like I said, I've still got to do that bit to do. And I've got to do the surrounds there, which will probably be in the same way I've did that. And then I can make a start on the roof. But going back to the roof again will just be done by eye, and I'll see what looks right. I have a rough idea what I'd like to do. What I'm thinking of doing is that with the roof, it'll be done in 3 separate stages. You'll have this bit, that bit, and then that bit. And the idea is going to be that I'm just going to just sort of sit the roof on top of this, because there'll be a bit of a dressing there, and I can use that as a lip all the way around and just sit the roof on top. And then that way, if I need to take the roof off for any reason, and maybe I want to put something in the inside, whether it be a bench or some more people or something like that, or you can just lift it off. And when I do the lighting, it's the same. If you put a roof on and you can take the roof off, if there's something wrong with the lighting, I can get to the lighting and it will just sit on top and rest on top, with more or less the same sort of style as what's at Margate Station. So this is where we're at with part 3. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it on the layout itself, and you can see how it looks on the layout. So here it is on the layout now. And as you can see, I've just given this piece of board a preliminary coat of sort of matte black paint. And as you can probably see from the pencil lines, I've started sort of having to go at where I'm thinking of putting the roads and the paving. This van here kind of represents maybe a taxi rank or something like that. I'm not quite sure yet. I've got a couple of British rail cars which might sit nicely, vans which might sit nicely there. So I might do that. I'm not entirely certain yet, but it's nice because this has been like just pure wood for a long time now. So it's nice to sort of have it painted up, so you could sort of have a rough idea of where it's all going to go. Another comment that somebody made, and I can't remember who it was, so my apologies. But if you do watch this video, I am answering your comment. It's to do with these 2 buses here. And he mentioned that, what am I going to do with all these buses now? I've got rid of my beloved bus station. So I've been toying with the idea of basically putting these buses essentially coming from in here, go around, sit down here, and then spin round and pick up on the other side, and maybe have some low relief buildings along here, and basically create that as my sort of town scene. So basically I've moved the town scene from the other end to this end. So that's kind of what I'm sort of thinking of doing at the moment. At the moment I've just been playing with these buses and driving them around this little section here to see realistically how they can turn and whether or not it is possible that they can get around. So that's kind of the next sort of thing that I'm kind of looking at. I've got that big chunky piece of card which you saw earlier, so I might be sort of using that either to do the canopy or to do some paving along here and just draw out and mark out some paving. Barnabas Junction, which is a great layout here on YouTube, go and check it out. He recently put up a video featuring some low relief buildings, and I was very interested in that. So I might be contacting, I can't remember his name now, I think his name was John something or other. He's on Facebook, and I will sort of look it up. And he basically did some really nice low relief card buildings for high streets. I know Barnabas had some modern stuff on, so I'm not sure if he does any of these sort of 80s sort of stuff, period stuff that I want really, because that's what this end of the layout's about. It's more like the 80s. As you go towards Moorwood, it's a bit more newer. So I wanted to see maybe if he did some low relief shops in that sort of time period, and if not, maybe I could email him or something like that and ask him whether he would, and then that would kind of set this off kind of nicely, because the idea of this board that's here, or this piece of it's a batten really. Basically, you'd probably put the low relief buildings on top of that, and I've got some steps here. Again, I think this idea was taken from Barnabas Junction as well, that he used these steps and he turned them upside down. I mean, this is one that I filled, but I do have another one. Basically, you can use that upside down so that you can have this as the paving, and the passengers get off the bus and they can walk up the steps to the low relief buildings and go to the shops up that way. So I was kind of toying with that idea. Whether that actually works or not is a different story. So I'm still working on that. So there's various bits and pieces, but I really like the idea of how this is sitting now. This looks really nice. and sort of look at it like that down below, get down to ground level. And incidentally, all these doors and things like that, they're, like I said before, they're all taken from like various sort of Metcalfe buildings and Hornby buildings that I have, and taking those measurements off of that to create the height and the width of these windows and doors, really. Also, what I did is I added a bit more detailing. I don't know if you can see it, just around the arch, because it was just plain before. So I've just added that as well. So that's something else I've done. So it's all coming along nicely. I think it's a great representation of Margate Station. Like I said, it's not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination, but we're getting there. And if you stay tuned, I'm going to show you a new addition. So here is my latest recruit that I got. I've actually had it for about a week. It's just for all the work that I've been doing on the station building, I actually, believe it or not, I actually forgot about it. Um, so it's called King's Lynn, and it's 47576, and it's in the original Network Southeast livery. So that kind of fits in with the kind of period that I'm dealing with at the moment. And I've been wanting this one for a little while actually, and this one I've managed to pick this one up off eBay brand new for under 100 quid, including postage, which I think is absolutely fabulous, to be honest with you, because these were going anywhere. The recommended retail price is I think about 120 quid or something like that, 115. I've seen it from about anything from about the £105 is the lowest I've seen it now, anything up to 170 quid. And so it is worth shopping around to see where you can get it. So I was really pleased when I saw it for 100 quid, including postage. I thought, yeah, now's the time to buy it. I had been eyeing it up for some time. It has been running and has been tested, and trains have been running, although I haven't been putting up any running sessions because I've had to make some minor modifications over at the platform down the other end. But that's no biggie. But it's just nice to run some trains actually, because I get so involved sometimes in just making scenery and things that I sometimes actually forget to run the trains. But I do enjoy it. But it's coming out really, really nicely. But like I said, this 47 is just fits in with the period well, and as you can see, it fits in with this background as well. So the plan for this canopy's changed slightly just before we go. I was going to raise it to the same height as that one, but it doesn't make too much sense because the gap to raise it to is going to be too high. It's going to be like that to get it level. So I've decided that I am still going to change the canopy to bring it in line with the canopy over here and the one on the front of the station building, but it will be probably at this height. My next plan is going to be to then start working my way down along here, all the way down to the fascia that's going to be at this end. So just before I go, let me just give you a quick little look-see as to how we go and progress really with some of my scratch building. We go from that white sheet of card, and this is the fascia, and that's kind of how that building there has ended up, well, started, and now it looks like this. And that fascia over here, once I finish with this fascia, will end up looking very similar to what's the station building. So you can see the sort of progression, and you can see all the lines where I've kind of marked everything out here. So yeah, it's like I said, I do encourage you to have a go if you fancy it. It's if you got the time and the energy to do it, then have a go. I think I feel quite satisfied doing it, to be honest with you, and especially when I've seen some of the buildings that are here on Berringer, that Hornby and Batman make. Some of them cost a lot of money if you buy them. If you buy them off the shelf these days, I mean, stations are going for like 60-70 quid or something, and some are 30 now, 40 quid. So depending on the station, and that's quite a lot of money. and you can make your own building. Um, it still costs me a bit of money, but I get the building that I want. It fits exactly where I want it, and it has cost me less, still a fair bit less. Now, just before I go, um, somebody asked me about what I was going to do with the original station building, and the answer to that is I'm not entirely certain about that, but that will probably go and probably be used at Volmer. I'm going to test it out when I do Volmer and see how that station building looks on Volmer. If it doesn't look any good or I don't feel like it, I might put it up for sale, either via one of you guys, if any of you are interested in it, or whether I put it up via eBay. But I'm going to just check to see whether or not um, it fits over at Volmer. So we'll wait and see on that. So anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Take care. Please feel free to comment and subscribe, and thanks for watching.